Hello and welcome to That VidBlaster Guy. I'm Tom Sinclair here with what we hope is going to be another great episode of That VidBlaster Guy. Remember, the premise for the show is that one guy with one PC can do one awesome broadcast. Now, I'm definitely one guy, and I've definitely got one PC, and I'm getting closer and closer and closer to the one awesome broadcast. And I appreciate all of the folks out there that have watched the show and have encouraged me, and not only have encouraged me by saying nice things, because that's always nice, but those of you that care enough to be truthful and say, yeah, Tom, that's not working, or Tom, you need to try this, or why don't you do this, or stop doing that. Those comments are really the best. I've got thick skin, you know, I'm a big boy. I can take it, and I really appreciate those of you that care enough to speak the truth. That really means an awful lot to me. The basic premise behind our show is that VidBlaster can do all sorts of really cool things. And we've sort of picked 3 different categories to report to you on a weekly basis. We appear every week on Tuesdays at 3 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock London time. Although we are contemplating a day change. We'll talk more about that later. But we focus in on 3 types of shows that VidBlaster excels in. Today's show is going to be about talk shows, which is what we actually have here is a talk show. And VidBlaster does a darn good job with talk shows. We also are going to, or one of our other themes is church broadcasting, and in upcoming weeks we'll have more church broadcasters back on. And then the third is sports broadcasting, and you might notice that today I've kind of got an interesting shirt on. It is my Fairhope soccer shirt, because Fairhope is the town I live in. The local high school is Fairhope High School, and tonight they have a soccer match. And they have asked me to sort of come out of retirement and help them broadcast the soccer match tonight. I did it last week. It was a ton of fun. I forgot how much I enjoyed it. I also forgot how all the problems that you run into when you're in a remote venue and you're going to broadcast live and you're working with people that maybe haven't done this before. I had a couple of high school kids that were helping me out, and they actually did a really great job for first-timers. Tonight there'll be second-timers, and so I know they'll do an even better job, and I'll do a better job too. There was a little bit of rust for me to knock off. But if you're doing sports broadcasting, you know that, especially if you're moving from venue to venue, that each venue presents a challenge. And I would encourage you, just as a tip, if you're not familiar with that venue, to go ahead and if it's at all possible, make a trial run by that venue. Get up into the press box, find out where the cameras are, find out where the electrical outlets are, see where the cable pathways will go. If they're supplying internet for you, take a laptop along and try it. If they're not, and you're doing it on your own with a wireless hotspot of some kind, take that along and test it. That way you've got as few surprises, because you're going to have some surprises, but you'll have as few surprises as you possibly can. Fortunately for me, I know that press box like the back of my hand. I know where the cables can go. I know where the cameras need to go. But just deciding where to put a camera sometimes can take 10 or 15 minutes, because you set it up and you find out, oh, there's a pole blocking a critical part of the end zone, or blocking the plate if it's baseball, something like that. So give yourself extra time. We were kind of teasing in pre-show about when you have too much extra time is when you go ahead and you say, well, I'm going to make a few changes here and try them out, and then everything blows up. So I would encourage you, if you've got extra time, take a minute and go down to the concession stand and get a soft drink. Don't try to change your configuration at the last minute. That's a great way to get yourself in trouble. I can attest to that, having been in trouble multiple times on that. Really excited about my guest today. I've been talking with Eric for a while about coming on the show, and finally we just connected, and today turned out to be a great day. And my guest today is Eric Chilton. Now, Eric has a regular day job in TV broadcasting, but he has a passion for what started out podcasting and is now internet TV broadcasting, of talking with folks that you probably know pretty well. These are people that you probably grew up with on TV. And he has tracked down these TV stars from the 50s and 60s, all over the United States, maybe even all over the world, and has interviewed them and gotten them to share story. Well, I'm not going to tell you his story. I'll let him tell you his story. Eric, welcome to the show. Let me get your volume up here. Well, I got you there?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, it's great. It's great. Welcome. So glad to have you with us today.
Thank you. This is fun. Well, you know, I've been talking for a long time, and you've helped me through a lot of tech issues and continue to do so. So I value our friendship, if for no other reason, Tom.
Oh, well,
Get my show on the air every week.
If it wasn't for tech, what would we do? We would have nothing to worry about.
But I started out as an audio podcast, as you said, and I think it was November of 2008, I believe. I'm trying to remember the exact date, but anyway, I think that was right. And it was just a fun little thing. You know, I discovered TalkShoe, if anybody's familiar with that website. And they, it was a place that allowed you to have kind of a call-in board, almost like a radio show, where I could see when someone would log in, I could unmute them, let them ask questions. As you know, Tom, audio is a heck of a lot easier than video. So that was fun, and I did that and used my contacts in my day job as a host of local television shows to try to get these celebrities. And I used to host a good morning show in Tampa. It was the #1 morning show for the Fox affiliate down there. And so I met a lot of contacts, and I used those to kind of get in touch with other folks and blah, blah, blah. And pretty soon I had some of these old celebrities, and one leads to another. That's one thing I found out in what I do. You meet one, and you say, can you hook me up with somebody else from that same time period? And they always know somebody.
Right.
And email somebody else and blah, blah, blah. And so that has helped out a lot. But I started doing that, and then lo and behold, I found VidBlaster one day. I literally think I was just searching or Googling for video production software, and it came up, and it was a free download, and I tried it. And with my television background, that helped out a lot. I understood chroma key and lower third supers and, keyable graphics and all that, and fell in love. So then I began my quest to make it a video show, and it really didn't happen until about 4 months ago that I really started focusing on it. And I have this little web studio behind me, which is basically just an office space that a friend of mine had extra and let me use, and I moved my home office furniture over here and bought an old microphone and some of my pictures of Johnny Carson was my idol growing up, and so I have all this stuff, Johnny Carson, all these pictures around here, and a little on-the-air light that I bought off the web, and that's it. And that's where I am now doing it. I try to do one once a week. It usually ends up to be week and a half, sometimes every 2 weeks, because I'm at the mercy of the celebrities.
Right. Now, Eric, I guess I'm tongue-tied here. Are you doing your shows live, or are you taping them and then playing them later?
I am taping them and then uploading them to all my outlets. The name of the show, by the way, is Wait, I Know This. There's my my silly plug for myself. So it's www.waitiknowthis.com. I'll stick it in the chat room. But what I did was I've only done video for about 5 episodes, and it's worked out okay. I mean, I've had some bad punches here and there, but overall it's pretty good. But just literally this past weekend, I think it was right after you and I got off the phone, Tom, and I spoke with you, I found a streaming service that I'm going to use, and so it will be streamed on my website live during the tapings from now on. So basically through social media, I promote when I'm going to do a show, because that's really the only way I can get it out, and also on my website. And then if you go to my website, and on the top it says WIKT, Wait, I Know This is WIKT Live. You click on that, and I'll have the chat interface like you do and the live video feed. So the first time I will do that is hopefully next week when I interview Gary Owens from Laugh-In, if you remember him.
Sure. And so I guess I'm not sure. Let me ask again. Do you have a regular time for your show, or is it just whenever your guests can come on?
Yeah, I
essentially.
am completely at the mercy of these guys. Now, that being said, I still try to do, I am just now starting to do one a week or a week and a half. And where if I can't get a guest, because sometimes you just can't find them, then I will just do one with a topic of classic TV or classic film or classic musicians. And so I'll just pick a topic and do kind of a Google Hangout type thing with folks and just talk about the good old days. We try to do some 50s. A lot of those stars are gone, but 50s, mostly 60s, 70s, and 80s.
Okay.
Sad that the 80s are oldies now, isn't it, Tom?
Yeah, well,
That marches on.
we didn't do anything. We just lived. It just happened.
Somebody in the chat room wrote, "Who is the CDN?" And it's that Vaughn Live.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm using vaughnlive.tv because as of right now, it's totally free. This guy, bless his heart, I actually am donating to him with his little PayPal thing because he offers a free, clean little stream with no bugs, no ads or anything like that, and you just embed it, and it so far it works great.
That's great. That's great. Yep. And I'll put that in the show notes for folks too. That's
vaughnlive.tv. There it is in the chat room too.
Okay. Great. Great. That's good. And we'll make sure that we get your URL.
So Tom, growing up, I guess growing up as a kid in a small town in North Carolina, and I just loved my TV stars. I used to write to movie stars all the time and TV stars as a kid, and I watched Johnny Carson religiously. And so my dream was to always have a celebrity talk show. And, graduated from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill and broadcasting. And eventually I actually went back to school and got meteorology, a broadcast meteorology certificate as well, so that I could do weather, because if you remember in the 70s and earlier, a lot of the weather guys ended up being hosts, like Pat Sajak and Johnny Carson, David Letterman were all weather guys at some point. So I kind of did that. And then as technology caught up with everything, I said, you know what? I don't need to have my own local or national show. I can do it on the web and just have fun and do it the way I want to do it. And so I've loved this so far.
Now, are all your shows available in an archive?
Yep. Wait, I know this is, if you go to the website, I have links to all the past shows, whether they're audio or video. There's a tab that says Our Guests or Podcast Episodes. You can look at that. But on the right-hand side of the page, it's like a sidebar, are all the celebrities I've interviewed. And so you can click there. Also, we have a YouTube channel. That's where I archive mine. And so you could just Google or YouTube for Wait, I Know This, or my name, Eric Chilton, and you can find them all there.
That is too cool. I can't wait. And folks, for those of you that have got particular stars, I can remember in college, every day at the Commons, the student Commons, where we went to pick up our mail, there was a group of guys that would sit down and watch Happy Days. And apparently reruns of Happy Days came on at a certain time every day, and there were 20 guys in the Commons gathered around the TV to watch Happy Days. And we grew up. I mean, even in our college years, we grew up watching that show, and every day we would go by and watch Happy Days. And after we knew all the episodes, we could just about act it out ourselves as it went on. It was a lot of fun.
I interviewed Henry Winkler, Tom, a couple years ago, and that was a really big one for me because I grew up. I was a kid when Happy Days was on, and I loved it. The Fonz was the coolest thing ever, and so when I got to interview him locally, I kind of used my my local TV press pass to get in this event that he was promoting. And when I got in there, I told him that I had an internet radio show. That was the only way I could think to describe it to him. And I just had a little portable recording device, and he was nice enough Henry Winkler to let me talk to him for a while. That was awesome. God, that was fun. Just to sit down with that guy after you grew up watching Arthur Fonzarelli was pretty darn cool.
Yep, and you've got it on tape.
Yeah, and I'm from Mount Airy, North Carolina. That's Andy Griffith's hometown.
Right.
So a lot of the things in the show Mayberry was based on Mount Airy.
Right.
And some of the people's names, like Emmett's Fix-It Shop, is really Emmett Forrest, who was his best friend growing up. And I know Emmett, he just passed away this year. A lot of, Mount Pilot, he talks about that, is actually Pilot Mountain. So I kind of grew up with that old school television culture, because if you're from Mount Airy, North Carolina, and you don't know everything about the Andy Griffith Show, you're kicked out.
Now, what were the challenges that you faced when you moved from audio to video? I mean, it's a whole different ballgame, isn't it?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it was a challenge for me, because I'm used to, when you're in the professional broadcast side of things, not that things don't go wrong, don't get me wrong, but these big corporations have lots of money. They buy things that have already been tested together, and you know how that goes. So if any of you have ever seen Tom's tour of the studio, you'll know he has like 650 video cards laying over in the video card graveyard. And you think about the money you spend on all those cards trying to find the right one that works. So the challenges for me, understanding it wasn't a problem, because I knew camera shots. I understood, as I said, lower thirds and full screen graphics and all that. Getting people to do my graphics for me, not a problem, because I have friends that do that at work. It was getting video. The biggest problem has been getting video from my second PC, where I'll have my guests on Skype on a second PC into my main PC. And as Tom can tell you, I've been struggling with that for weeks now. It's either the frame rate's not matching up, the resolution's not matching up, it's not seeing the Blackmagic card or the AverMedia or whatever. It's just, there's 1,000 different things that go wrong. Luckily for my podcast, because of the age group that I'm dealing with, obviously there are some of us, myself included, from the 50s or in your late 40s like me or up, that get it. But a lot of these stars don't get it. So I have to call them on Skype on their landlines anyway. And so that makes it easier for me. But I'm trying to get I'm trying to get the video to work. VidBlaster works like a charm. Getting the video into VidBlaster is another issue.
Well, and that's a great point that you bring up, because so many of the problems that I end up dealing with folks in a tech support role are not necessarily VidBlaster, but in order for VidBlaster to do what they want it to do, they got to solve these other problems.
Yep.
I'm talking with a lady right now that wants to remote stream something to Ustream, and then also have it go to 3 other locations and go up on a projector in those locations. Well, VidBlaster's not going to handle the projector part of it, because VidBlaster's, handles it on the sending end, not the receiving end. But in order to help her accomplish her project, we kind of had to go outside those bounds of just VidBlaster in the tech support part. But Eric, it's a pain in the tail to do all these cards, but it really is. You have to admit, it's kind of fun.
Oh, I love it.
I mean, that geeky side of you just, really, especially if you've got the time to do it and you don't have people, hollering at you saying, I need a piece of you for 10 minutes.
Well, and that's probably my problem, because between my job, I also have a band that I'm in, and I have 3 kids and 1 on the way. Basically my wife, bless her heart, gives me a few hours on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. We even have the days set down, so I have to do my shows usually on Tuesdays or Thursdays. But in those hours that I'm here in my little web studio, and I would take a camera shot and show you around. I'm scared to death it'll lock up again, but I love it. I mean, you're right. Trying the video, that's a problem I don't mind trying to fix, because it's fascinating to me. You always find something out that you didn't know, and now you know, and you can help somebody else,
That's true. That's true. Yep. And, I can see some of my friends here in the chat room that have helped me out with many things in the past. And some of it I can remember when I was, a geek is just a frustrated auto mechanic, I think, that sees technology. And I used to do a lot of shade tree mechanicking and would come into the house frustrated because I couldn't figure out a problem. And I'd try to explain it to my wife, Sandy, who is just a sweetheart. And, she would try to listen and understand, but it was, it was mechanics. But then she would ask a question that somebody else would say, that's a stupid question. Obviously, a woman would ask a question like that. But her question would spark something in me, and I would go, aha, that's it. And I would go out, and sure enough, that would have been the problem. And I mean, she and I have been married 30 some odd years, and that's probably happened 20 or 30 times where I have shared something with her and with computer stuff too. And, she doesn't have a clue what I'm talking about, but she'll ask a question and it just happens to thread a pathway in my brain to the answer. It's amazing. It's
That's
amazing.
when someone looking from the outside can see it more simply. You have too many thoughts going on about the little intricacies, and then she looks and goes, "Well, hey, that thing's not plugged in."
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Oh,
Don't you
that's
need this little part over here? Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. But
Yeah.
you know what? I love it, Tom, because my passion was always television, and even though it's what I do, local news. I always, my wife and I have had this discussion 1,000 times. Local news is local news. You're always going to be a local news station, or in my case, I host the morning show and I also do weather for it. And no matter how much I wanted to be an entertainment host, I'm still the local weather guy or the local news host. It's not the same. And so this fulfills a need that I can't get at the local level. The days of local talk shows and all those are pretty much gone. And once in a blue moon, you see that. But the ratings aren't as good anymore since there's so many TV channels to choose from. So you're seeing that die, literally. And so my chances of doing that are pretty much dying with it. So not now that I'm doing the internet show. So now I can do it the way I want to, and I'm very proud of my website, and I love it.
Well, Eric, I want to disagree with you a little bit right here, because I think what's happening is these things are moving. They're not ceasing to exist. They're just moving to a different venue. And this is the venue.
I'll give you that. You're right.
And 10 years from now, when you are wildly successful with this show, we'll all go back and say, "Oh yeah, I remember that guy when he was, when he was just a TV weather guy."
When he was a 2,000 download a month guy.
Yeah, that's right. And now he's raking in $100,000 a month with this show, and he's interviewing all sorts of international celebrities, and you just never know where this stuff will end up.
The great thing about this, though, Tom, is the fact that I love your line of one man, one PC, because I don't have to be in a TV studio. You know what I mean, to do this. Right. All right, I'm venturing out on a limb here. I'm going to change camera angles. Everybody, hold your breath, because we locked up a little while ago. But the thing I love about it, whoa, it worked.
There he is. He's still moving.
Okay, so the cameras I use are the Logitech C920s. A lot of people are, if you're a podcaster, you're a big fan of these, and it's high def. I mean, you think about this. We spend at the TV station where I work. You spend, back in the old days, it was hundreds of thousands for the studio cameras. Well, guess what? They're not high def. And then this little camera that you can get on eBay for $80 is high def. And so it's amazing what you can do. So this is kind of the little studio I built. There's my Rat Pack picture on the wall. I'm going to change something here. Hold on.
All right, folks, while he does that, I'm going to redo this screen capture, because certain things that he's talking about are outside of the screen cap.
See. Yeah,
So
I see.
let me redo that here real quick. That's going to mess
Show you
everything
my
else
pride
up.
and joy, my one shot that I spent so long on. Oh, there you go.
There we go.
So the one shot, I have 3 cameras in here. The 2 are the Logitech C920s. The other one is that, I think it's called an Orbit AF sphere. It's a Logitech as well. But this shot is not the shot quality, because you're going to look at it and it's going to look a little orange to you, and it is. But it's what I have in there. So there is the logo of my show. And what I did was I took an old monitor out of one of our live trucks that they were literally throwing away. And I took it from my station, and I said, "Can I have this?" I said, "Yep." Took that. I had a carpenter friend of mine build what looks like a 1940s television. I found a picture of a 1940s television on a website, and I emailed the JPEG to him. I said, "Can you imitate this?" And here, let me. I can adjust the shot a little bit, because it's actually it is a tilt, pan, and zoomable camera. So he built that facade around it and put the little knobs on there and scored the front, so it looks like an old TV. So I have this shot that, while I'm doing my show, just because remember, most of my celebrities are not on camera. Some are, some aren't. I can punch between that shot, which I love, because you can still kind of see me in the background. Hello. And then the logo of the show in that old TV look. And then that's my wide shot. And then, of course, back to me. Double boxes like Tom does. I love to do that. I'll queue up YouTube videos of whoever I'm interviewing. Like in this case, you see the little Johnny Carson video over there. I can take it full and you see my super at the bottom of the screen. I have a logoed super that a friend of mine at work made for me. So that's the thing that I like, Tom, is the fact that I can do all of this literally as well as we do it in a local TV station. And it's amazing to me that you can do it in high def for as little money as it costs.
Yeah, it's not fair. It's not fair.
Do you know the high def cameras that we have in our studio now, Tom, are $3,000 each, and the studio cameras we had that were standard definition were $100,000 each.
Yeah. But also that high definition camera that's in your studio, the guts of it are probably in prosumer cameras all across the world.
That's right. That's right. I mean, you can spend $3,000 on a broadcast quality high definition field camera and have it be as good as anything that you'll see on ESPN or anywhere else.
One of the things I'm looking forward to, is sort of off subject, is somebody called me up one day and said, Tom, I saw your show. Have you ever used a Canon such and such and such and such a camera? It retails for $25,000, and I can say, I can assure you that I've never used that camera. Don't know what it was, but when you said the price tag, I can assure you. He said, well, the guts of this camera have been put in a little IP camera, and I'd like to send you one to try out. It retails for $2,500, and I'm thinking, well, that's better than $25,000, but that's still way out of this cheap guy's budget. But they're going to send me one, and it's supposed to be, this big, and attaches to the wall and does high definition full frame video, and is I think a pan and zoom or whatever you want to call it, whatever you call it. I mean, I can't wait. It's essentially an IP camera, but it's got high definition 1080p. Wow.
You and I are friends with Andrew Aryan from the guys from Queen's Network, and this guy amazes me because now that he's built his studio and he's got these podcasts on his show. I mean, I'm pretty sure. Am I right in saying this, Tom, that he makes a living at that? Right, that's his job.
That is his job.
Yes, and I think that's amazing. I have friends here, and we are trying the same thing, and you will probably within the next, I'd say 3 months, we're going to have broadcasttogo.com. We've got the domain, and we're working on the website right now, and we're going to try the same thing. I try to find people who believe in what their topic is, because if you're not passionate about your topic, everybody knows. Even if they're not fans of that topic, they can tell. And so I have found about 6 different podcast friends of mine that love the idea, and I guess what Andrew does is just sell in bulk all of his eyeballs. Now, whether that works or not, and can you make a whole lot of money? Probably not a whole lot, but you might be able to get a little revenue stream coming in. But to me, it's all about new media, just getting people together that love what they do, and having kind of a one-stop shop where you can check out iTunes has owned that for so long with all the podcasts, and I'm on iTunes too. But I love the idea of bringing people in that are good at this and passionate about it, and I'll let them use my studio, and they'll change out the knickknacks behind me for whatever their topic is, and we have a good time doing it.
What you need is a little roll-down green screen.
I have that. That's so funny you said that. I have it. It's above on the top, and I just and I literally, that's exactly what I do, Tom. If they want a different look,
they can roll in anything they want. Yep.
Here's your weird trivia for the day, Tom. Can you see maybe barely in the shot? There's a clock right there.
Hold on, let me go to big wide shots.
I'm not even sure you're going to be able to see. I think it's kind of cut off, but right.
Oh
there.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you see the time?
Is it 11:30?
11:30. What used to come on at 11:30?
Johnny Carson.
Johnny Carson.
Yeah.
There's no batteries in it. It always says 11:30.
Oh, and so nothing behind you is accidental, even the clock.
Yeah,
I love it.
All of these books. Well, there's a few Bibles over here that I'm pointing to, but all of the books are TV related books, most of them, or radio or music related. And so the big ones like this are just because they look so nice. They were my dad's before he passed away, so I keep those up there. But most of these books in here are a lot of TV books, a lot of Johnny Carson books are tributes. And these pictures down here, I absolutely love this shot because it's Carson and Ed McMahon. They were showing an Emmy they had gotten in the '60s on the set, and look how young they look.
Wow.
So that everything in here is stuff that I have either collected about television. The microphone, that's actually one of those blue Yeti mics that's just meant to look old, but that's a USB mic.
Oh, my friend Amnon loves those.
Oh, I do too. I love the sound of that. I just got it up there because it looks nice.
Very cool. Very cool.
So the guest that I was working on, Tom, that I thought you might like coming up, or you remember Gary Owens from Laugh-In, who did the introduction, right?
Right.
I may be able to get, this would be huge in my book at least, is Jerry Van Dyke, Dick Van Dyke's brother. I would love to get him. And a buddy of mine named Bob Mills, who I did just recently on another show, because he wrote, I've done shows with him twice, because he wrote for Bob Hope for 10 years, and he wrote for the Dean Martin Celebrity Roast for 2 years. So I've done 2 different shows with Bob. But Bob's good friends with all these old writers and actors. They get together like the 3rd Thursday or something of every month. They're all retired and older, and they just tell stories. And I have begged my, wife. I'm saying, look, I got to go out there one day because he told me I can come and just sit with these guys. Pat Harrington, who played Schneider on One Day at a Time. It used to be Louis Nye used to go to this. Who did I just say? Gary Owens, Jonathan Winters. They all gather together and just sit at this little cafe and tell stories. And since they're all kind of, older now, the limelight, a lot of the young people have no clue who they are.
Right.
So they're not really bothered a great deal. And I cannot wait to go with him and tell these stories. But he's getting me possibly Jerry Van Dyke and Gary Owens in the next 2 weeks. And I can't wait for those.
That is huge. Boy, don't you wish you had a mobile broadcasting rig?
Yes.
And you could haul it down there, mic everybody.
I went to 2 years ago. I went to something called if anybody lives on the East Coast, this is a must go. The Mid-Atlantic Nostalgia Convention. And if you're a big fan of old TV like I am, all it is, it's in Maryland. It's in Hunt Valley, Maryland, I believe is the name of the place. I can drive up there in about, I think it was a 4-hour drive. And I went up there with just some audio recording equipment because at the time, it was all audio for me and my laptop. I did video on my laptop just for me, but it's not broadcast quality. So, but I interviewed in one weekend, I interviewed Davy Jones, Patty Duke, Karen Valentine, Michael Constantine, Lauren Chapin, and Billy Gray from Father Knows Best. I interviewed all 6 of those in a 2-day span. And some of it I wasn't happy with, so I didn't post them all. But the Lauren Chapin interview I put up, Patty Duke's audio, it broke my heart, was just not the best in the world because I had to interview her outside and there's traffic. So it didn't sound very good. But I'm going back this year. Last year they just had Shirley Jones, and that's a great place for me. But you say mobile broadcasting unit. I'm going to take a lot of my equipment up there and set up a booth and let them come and sit with me, and I'll just punch shows with them and tape them all there. I think that's going to be a blast.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know what the idea just popped in my head as you said that. If you're going to set up a booth, why don't you set them up behind a green screen? And then later on, you can key in whatever you want behind them.
That's a good idea. Yeah, that's not bad. Well, I usually get them one-on-one, and the guy that runs the convention has been super nice to me because, he knows I'm with local media in North Carolina. And I said, look, right. I'll do a story that'll air on my station and just say that it's only a 4-hour drive once a year if you'll just let me have a space there, a booth.
Right.
And he said, yeah. And there's a guy, too. If anybody likes now I'm not as much into old radio, but it is interesting to me to listen to some of those old shows. Old-time radio classics on Sirius XM. I listen to every now and again. I love the old suspenseful, like the horror ones or the Twilight Zone type shows from radio. And there's a guy that runs that entire channel by himself. His name is Greg Bell, and I met him at that Mid-Atlantic Nostalgia Convention, and we struck a friendship up, and I've had him on the show too. That guy that's an area where he said he's trying to possibly make his show a nostalgia channel and not just radio. So there is a chance that some of my podcasts may air on that from an audio standpoint. But that guy, I encourage all of you to listen to him because he has, if you like that old radio stuff, he's a treasure trove of information.
Well, tell me, just to switch gears for just a second. You've been using VidBlaster for about 4 months. What has been the biggest challenge to you in using VidBlaster?
Oh, that's a good one. I honestly using VidBlaster was. I've had so many people try to get me to switch to other, and I won't even mention names, but they've tried to get me to switch to other ones, and I just don't. I don't know whether it's my TV background. It's not as the other software versions that I've tried out. Only two, but it's not as intuitive to me as VidBlaster. This makes sense to me that I can drag my modules around and place them where I want to on the screen and organize them. And some of the other ones are so layer centric, I'll say, because they're focused on layers in individual snapshots. I like the ability to create all of my layers in one module and move those where I need to and get the others out of the way. I like basically being able to set up my production switcher, I guess, if you will, the way I want to do it. So really, it hasn't been a challenge for me to figure it out. As I told you, the challenge for me is getting the sources I want into VidBlaster and making sure my PC is strong enough to do everything I want to do. Those have been the challenges.
So are you a visual guy?
Yes, very visual. And I will tell you this, if I could tell anyone at VidBlaster the one thing that I really want, I want the capability, maybe through a USB cable or however this would happen, and maybe this is already out there and I just don't know it. I want to physically have a row of buttons that I can program to be whatever module I want it to be. So when I hit 1, camera 1 comes up. When I hit 2, camera 2. That physically is what I want instead of having to click on the screen.
You want a switcher.
I want a switcher.
You want a switcher.
I want a physical switcher. And I've seen some button boards that you can program, and a lot of those are programmed based on where your cursor is on the screen.
Right.
But I don't like that because what if I move my cameras around?
Sure. Yep. In fact, I took an old game controller and set it up with a piece of third-party software and used it as a switcher for soccer for several years.
It sounds so easy. I mean, surely there's probably a 20-year-old out there that can sit down and write that program in no time.
Well, I think VidBlaster, and I need to do some more research on this because this is an area that I'm really weak in, but I think VidBlaster, through its API, can do a lot of that and can interface with a MIDI device. And so conceivably, you could use a keyboard. You could use, basically anything that was a MIDI device and map out the buttons or the keys to do whatever you wanted to.
Number pad on the keyboard, that'd be awesome.
You can actually do that right now.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
This is why you're here. You're the man with the information. For God's sake, where have you been? Let me write this down.
Well, growing up with software, there was always a manual. And you could sit down, you could read through the manual, and on the way to find out what you were looking for, you learned 5 other things. And, VidBlaster doesn't have a manual. I've corresponded with Mike Versteeg on that, and I don't think he enjoys writing that kind of stuff.
I would hate that.
And, and as a result, it hadn't happened. Now, there's a great wiki, if you haven't seen the wiki.
Yes, that has answered almost all of my questions.
Jan Akala and Martin Kay have written most of it. I've got a few articles in there, but those guys have done the
Jan's
bulk
got
of
the
it.
link for me for the keyboard shortcuts. Bless your heart, as we say in the South.
That's in the chat room. If you're not watching us live, we're sorry you've missed out on that. We'll put it in the show notes. And so the whole idea of documentation is kind of taken on a new way. It's not a book that we can sit down and study. Like, I remember there was a database program 20 years ago, 30 years ago called PC File. And you could print out a 400-page manual, which I did. I mean, it was this thick. And I remember just staying up late at night and going through that page after page to try to figure out how to make things work, and sooner or later I could. But one of VidBlaster's weaknesses, Eric, is that it's so easy to use.
That's true.
If you think it does it, it probably does, and so you get spoiled. And the other thing that I love, and I was talking with Jan Akala about this last week, and I probably insulted him because I'm one of those damn Yankees, one of those Americans that doesn't have a clue about the rest of the world. You know, I figured Legos were invented in Georgia or someplace, and of course they were invented in Denmark. But VidBlaster is like Legos. You put the modules together however you want them. You know, you can stack them if you want to. You can put them alongside of each other. You can turn them up on sideways. You can do anything to them. You can combine them into different effects. Yep. And I remember when I first discovered VidBlaster, corresponding with Mike Versteeg, the developer, and you know, talking about ways of combining these modules, and they were things that he'd never intended. He didn't even know it would do that if you could put those together. And so it's been so much fun to go through and to discover that, and to work with folks like you that are seeing it again for the first time. I mean, you know, I'm a big reader, and there's nothing like having one of my favorite authors come out with a new book. But I can only read that new book once for the first time. After that, I know the ending. And so to work with folks that are seeing VidBlaster for the first time is kind of like getting to read that book again for the first time, because you guys are going, wow, look at this. If you can do this, you can put that together. You can do this. And I've always wanted to do this, this, and this. And off they go. And it's just a ton of fun. The contest winner last week is getting his copy of VidBlaster this week, and is going to do dirt track racing with it. And I've always wanted to see dirt track racing through VidBlaster. I've tried to figure out how to get into the dirt track venues around here, and I couldn't. And it turns out this guy's been doing dirt track for years, but just video, and then coming back and doing post-production with 4 cameras. Well, now he can do all of it live. Not only can he do his post-production show live to tape, he can do his whole show live to live.
Oh, I know. You know, that's the thing I tell people. They're like, oh, but don't you hate when you went to video? Don't you hate editing all that? I say, I don't edit a thing.
Right.
I hit record and I'm in black. I come up on my open. I punch to me. I do the whole show. I say thanks to the guest, and then I roll the close and hit stop, and it's done. You know, and even with the audio, but heck, the audio version is now a bigger pain for me because I don't record it at the same time like I should, because it takes, you know, CPU. So I go back and play the episode and record the audio again, which, you know, takes a while. But I don't mind doing. I'm sure there's a quicker way to do it.
There's a quicker way to do it. You can strip out the audio.
Yeah, I'm not going to mess with it. But that's what I tell them. I say, I punch it live. And let me throw this out to Tom. I'll show you a little bit of the open to my show. A buddy of mine can do incredible animations, and if somebody wants to, I mean, it's freelance work, so you do have to pay him, but it's not ridiculously expensive. Look at this open. I don't know if you want to make me full screen real quick. I'll show this to you, and then I'll leave you alone. I know you got better things to do, but
come on.
Here's what it looks like.
Join us each week. This segment is brought to you by... And now, this. From our Art Deco virtual studios overlooking the Valley of Coolville, it's time to kick the flux capacitor and head back in time to your favorite retro pop culture trivia show. Wait, I know this. Get it, homies.
See, he does excellent work.
That was great.
He does that, you know, for a living with commercials. But I told him the audio of that I've been using since I started the podcast. That's a buddy of mine at a radio station. He did it in literally about 10 minutes. I wrote a script, emailed it to him. He recorded it with the music. And then I gave this music and that to my buddy Dan, and I said, I want an old Bewitched-looking kind of background. And that's what he did. And he did that in one day. So if anybody needs an open like that, contact me at eric@waitiknowthis.com, and I'll get you his contact info, because you don't have to spend a fortune to have something like that for your podcast.
All right, we're going to put that in the show notes too. I'm so behind on the show notes.
I'm home before my wife so she doesn't leave.
Well, Eric, it's been a real treat for me to have you on the show today. I mean,
I appreciate it.
You were doing the kinds of things with VidBlaster that I dreamed people would do, where they would take their passion and they would be able to just explode with it. And, you know, who knows where you're going to end up.
Well, thank you. I love doing it. And next time you talk to Mike, you tell him that I'm very appreciative for his software. That's for sure.
Will do. Will do. Folks, Eric Chilton, Wait, I Know This. And you'll want to tune in and catch him the next available time. And so it's waitiknowthis.com. And again, his shows are on an irregular basis, so you're going to have to kind of find out. And my guess is that he's going to be able to give you some notice ahead of time, and that he'll have a Twitter feed that you can follow so that you can know when things are coming up. But you won't want to miss that. Let's take a break, a little revenue timeout, and we'll be right back with our Flash Media Live Encoder tutorial. Hi, I'm Tom Sinclair, that VidBlaster Guy. One of the reasons why I started the show, that VidBlaster Guy, is so that I could show off the power and the ease of use of my favorite software, VidBlaster. Every week we do a live show that talks all about VidBlaster, and we have guests on that show how they're using VidBlaster and how they couldn't do what they're doing without VidBlaster. Anyway, you know the routine. The other reason why I started the show is because I'm a VidBlaster reseller. I want people, when they buy VidBlaster, to buy it from me. That way you get personal support from me, Tom Sinclair, that VidBlaster Guy. You get my cell phone number. You get my email address. If you're in a jam and you need an answer, you've got somebody to call. Call me, Tom Sinclair. You can get VidBlaster from my website, thatvidblasterguy.com. There's a store there. Just click on the link and you can get VidBlaster, get a license to VidBlaster. If you need to upgrade, let's say you've got the Home Edition, you want to upgrade to the Pro Edition, you get 100% credit for the Home Edition that you already own towards your purchase of the Pro Edition, but it does have to be handled manually. So shoot me an email, tom@thatvidblasterguy.com, and we'll get that in the works for you. If you need great support for great software, call me, Tom Sinclair, that VidBlaster Guy. And also, watch us on Tuesdays on That VidBlaster Guy show. And we're back to me live. I would be delighted to assist you if I can. And if you've just got a question, shoot me an email. I love to get questions about VidBlaster. Funny story, I was sitting down this morning to make up this tutorial that I'm about to show you on Flash Media Live Encoder. And I got all set up, got my recording software set up, and started the tutorial. Went about 10 minutes. I mean, it was a pretty long tutorial. If you've ever looked at Flash Media Live Encoder, you know it has a lot of different parts to it, a lot of options. And I mean, I hit it on the first take. It was perfect. And I said, you know, I think I'm going to go ahead and start Flash Media Live Encoder as a way of ending this tutorial. So I hit the start button and FMLE crashed. All my 10 minutes, you know, the recording was still there, but the recording ends with Flash crashing. And I said, you know, I can't do that. That is not good. And so I said, let me check all my settings. Did it again, 9.5 minutes. It was going great. Hit the start button on Flash, crashed again. And I said, I got to figure this out. So I started testing things in different parts of Flash to find out what was going on in FMLE that was causing it to crash. And then I started my recording software again and tried to start FMLE, and it crashed. And it was the recording software that was doing something to interfere with the Flash Media Live Encoder software. So the tutorial that I'm about to show you does not include starting the program for that reason, because it was not compatible with the software that I was using to record it. But anyway, and I'll post this. I'll post this as a separate tutorial so you can come back and watch it again and again, or whatever. Sorry about that. Sometimes I get the big head going here, but you might want to watch it more than once because there's a lot of details in there. So anyway, let me cue this up, and Flash Media Live Encoder tutorial take 3. Hello, welcome. That VidBlaster Guy. Wanted to bring you a tutorial today about Flash Media Live Encoder, and in fact that's what you see below me right here. Flash Media Live Encoder, or FMLE, is a free encoder from Adobe. You can download it at adobe.com and get your very own copy. VidBlaster counts on Flash Media Live Encoder to be installed on your PC in order to do the one-touch streaming to Ustream and Bamboozer and some of the other CDNs. You can also use Flash Media Live Encoder separately from VidBlaster and get a little bit more control over it, kind of tweak it the way you want it. That's what I do on my show, that VidBlaster Guy, and I want to show you how I do that. So let's see, let's focus in a little bit on this section called the encoding options right here. And this is where the real work happens. The preset right here is set for custom because I've customized mine. You can drop the click down here and see that there are lots of different ones that are sort of built in that you can choose from, but we're not going to use the off-the-shelf. We're going to customize our own. Video is selected because we're streaming video. The device is VidBlaster. And you say, well, of course it's VidBlaster. You're that VidBlaster guy. It's got to be VidBlaster. Well, let's drop down the menu and see. We've got 4 Osprey choices. That's my capture card. We've got VidBlaster VVD. We've got my webcam. And then we've got VidBlaster again. So we have 2 VidBlaster choices here. Well, we have 2 because we're using both of VidBlaster's options for video out. We're using the new video out module, which produces the VidBlaster VVD. VVD is an abbreviation for virtual video device. The other option down here, entitled VidBlaster, is the output from VidBlaster's streamer when it's set to virtual video device. And since we're going to use a Skype here in just a second when we start our regular show, we're going to leave VidBlaster VVD for Skype to use, and we're going to select VidBlaster here for us to use. And after a bump or two, we're back, and we have no options here because it doesn't know what VidBlaster is, so we're not going to worry about that one. The format allows us to choose the encoder. We've got 2 choices, H.264 and VP6. VP6 does a better job of encoding if your CPU your CPU resources are somewhat limited. H.264 does a better job if your bandwidth is somewhat limited. So depending on your situation, bandwidth or CPU, you can pick which encoder you want to use. Today we're going to pick VP6, but I'm going to show you the options on both of them. The little wrench right here is a toolbox where we can see what other settings choices we have. The first is keyframe frequency. We've got a choice between 1 and 10 seconds on our keyframe. We'll leave that at 5. That's basically if there's a hiccup in the video where it goes to pick up. It picks up at the next keyframe, so the longest our hiccup could be would be 5 seconds. We have a choice of quality, and again, these are sort of presets. Best quality, lowest frame rate, great quality, average frame rate, good, average great, lower great. We're going to select great quality, average frame rate. Noise reduction is for video noise. I use none because I have virtually no video noise in my show. And then data rate of medium, we're going to leave that set there. If we were concerned that our bandwidth were fluctuating or somebody else's bandwidth at home might be fluctuating, we would use huge in order to have a big buffer available to accept all that, all the video and store it up, waiting for the internet connection to clear up a little bit. And all that happens within seconds or even less. CPU usage, dedicated. We're going to use dedicated because we want to make the most use of our CPU so that we can have the highest quality encoder. And then we'll select OK for that. And that's for VPS. For H.264, again, we'll select the same wrench. We've got different choices. Baseline, if we had a lower powered CPU. Main for the i7, I use an i7 here. Level 3.1. 3.1 is sort of the lowest high definition level. You can go all the way up to 5.1 if you're doing 1080 streaming. And 3.0 down to 1.3 would be for standard definition. 3.0 would be for your highest standard definition. 1.3 for your lowest standard definition, and actually it goes lower than that. But we're going to use 3.1, and keyframe, again, the same as the other. The frame rate on the VidBlaster Guy show is 25 frames a second. If I were doing sports, I might want to choose 30. If I were doing high definition, I might want to go all the way up to 60. Whoops, that's going to give me a gray stream because I'm not streaming at that. Let's go back to 25. Input size 864 by 480 is essentially the input that VidBlaster is streaming or is making available to Flash Media Live Encoder. So that's my only choice right there, and I am going to maintain my aspect ratio. Under bitrate, I've chosen 2 bit rates because my streaming partner, Decast, allows me to send 2 streams. So I've got a higher quality stream at 800K BPS and 864 by 480, and I simply just input that information by typing it in. And then I have a lower quality stream, 320 by 178 at 200K BPS, and that's for my folks that have got bandwidth issues, or maybe they're streaming the show over their telephone. Coming over to the audio settings, under these encoding options, I've got 2 choices here. I've got my Behringer UCA sound card, which is number 3, and I've got number 6 right here, which is my mixer. The 3 and 6 basically refer to the USB ports that those are plugged into. So I'm going to take everything from the mixer. The only format choice I have is MP3. Channels, I've got a choice of mono and stereo. I'm going to choose mono because, well, there's just one of me. And then sample rate, 22,050. Anything above that, the human ear can't really distinguish. The highest bit rate there is 48. I'd like to stream it a little bit higher because I've got the bandwidth. So I'm going to bump up to 44,100 and use a 64K BPS bit rate. My volume is pegged out because I know that's what I need to do in order to have enough volume for my show. Over here on the output options, I'm streaming to Flash Media Server, and it's at Decast, and those are the codes. Please don't look at them. There's my stream code also, and that's information that Decast gave me. Since I'm doing 2 streams, I can't use the auto adjust feature, but if I could, it would allow me to drop frames or degrade quality if there was a problem. I can also save this to a file. I can limit the file size and limit the duration. Once all those are set, then I would just click the start button and I would start it. Once it's started, I can go to the encoding log and I can see what's going on specifically with the computer over here and with the stream, and then I can look over here for my 2 different feeds, my audio feed, my video feed 1 and 2, and I don't have a 3rd one, but if I did, it would appear there. What the duration is, what the bit rate, frames per second, and drops on the input, and then drops in frames per second on the output. That's the actual live, and then down here it'll do the same thing, but in an average. And then I can click the publishing option, and it tells me based on my bandwidth what my current bandwidth is, what the buffer is, and am I dropping any frames. So that's kind of an overview. Let's go back to the encoding options here. That's kind of an overview of Flash Media Live Encoder. And feel free to shoot any questions to me, Tom at thatvidblasterguy.com. If you want more information about VidBlaster, let me know. Been great talking to you. If I can help you, I'd be happy to. Take care. And that was Flash Media Live Encoder. Sorry about the little flashy video there at the end. Not quite sure what happened with that. I'm using a program called BSR Screen Recorder to do the recordings, and sometimes it acts a little funky, and I'm thinking that may have been BSR doing its thing at that point. And I'm going to upload that tutorial separately so that you can look at it. The other thing, and I kind of cheated on that one, I got to admit. The notes that I referred to that I was looking at was nothing but the Adobe Flash Media Live Encoder help file that I had pulled up on a separate window. But that help file has got all sorts of great information in it. And if you're interested and want to go deeper in it, if you'll Google something like FMLE profile bass versus main, you'll find some really interesting discussions about how those work in different ways, and people that apparently know a lot more about them that can talk about how they're intended to be used. So that's Flash Media Live Encoder. Coming up in April, we're so pleased that Justin Hopp won our February VidBlaster giveaway, that we want to do something special again in April. So if you've got some ideas of what we should do for a contest in April, and some ideas of what we might do as a giveaway to go along with that contest, I am all ears. I've got some ideas too, and I'm thinking that I would like to, well, I'm not going to tell you yet. I would love to see what you guys have to suggest. So shoot me an email, tom@thatvidblasterguy.com. And, I can tell already, somebody's going to say, yeah, you need to give away a studio version. Would that I could. That would be wonderful. Maybe we'll do that for a super grand prize sometime. We'll just have to wait and see. But we want to have another contest coming up in April, so if you have some ideas and want to share those with me, I'd love to have them. And that kind of brings us to the end of today's show. Look forward to seeing you next week, Tuesday, thatvidblasterguy.com. If you're watching us on YouTube, again, we'd love to have you join us live. Live is a lot of fun, and the guys in the chat room are always very, very interesting. If you're watching live, hang around for the after show. And other than that, we'll see you next week.